Adding foliage to the terrain is actually very similar to textures, so it shouldn't take very long. So the next one is trees, which is right next to the paint tool. So right here, again, make sure you have your terrain selected. Click on the tree button or place trees. And it's just like the textures where you can click to place trees or hold down shift to erase trees. We have no trees defined though, so just like textures, we got to go ahead and add them. And again, they're going to be in our standard assets. So edit trees, add tree. It says to assign a tree, click on this little circle here. And now you have all these different objects. Obviously, we want just the trees. So I'm going to import every one of these. It's always good to have a variety of trees. So there's our first one. Add tree. There's the second one. And I'm just going to do this for all four. So we have 4 different types of trees. Now these are not scaled the same, so when we do place them, we may need to change some of the properties to scale them correctly, because some trees are huge and other ones are kind of small. And it's just trial and error to figure out what you want. All right, so we have a few different options down here for selecting trees. So I'll put in my palm trees first. So we have brush size, and then tree density. This is how many trees it's going to place in the area that you select. And you always have the same cursor. So for example, if I click down here, it's going to put some trees. Now, depending on your tree density, that's how thick it's going to be. Tree height is random here. All right, so it gives you a min and a max, so you can actually move the min and the max around to get some variance for when you're placing your trees. Before you place too many trees, we should probably have an object for some reference so we don't make giant trees or small trees and then have to change it later. So let's go ahead and put a character into the game. So in your standard assets, we have the characters folder. Open these folders up by clicking on the triangle. So standard assets, characters, third person character, prefabs. Prefabs are just pre-made objects that you can import into your game. So we want this third person controller. So we're just going to click and drag and drop them into the game. If you hover your cursor over the scene view and hit F, you can zoom right to that object. So that tree is actually just the right size. So here's what our character is going to look like, and I'm just testing it to make sure that the tree is the right size. All right, so now I can go through. As you can see, my island's pretty big for my character. So I'm going to go through and put some more trees down. So just go through here, maybe some along the beach, in a nice neat row. Probably not the best idea, but you want to randomize it the best you can. Okay, for some of you using the desktop computers in the classroom, I apologize. It may not do as good of a job as you're hoping. They're just a little bit older. All right, so there's my palm trees. If you want to change the different type of tree, again, we may have to change the size. So I'm going to come down here closer to the character and put one in. It's not too bad. It's about right. And just put some larger trees in here in these grassy areas. Maybe I want the tall ones to have a nice deep forest back here, so I'll increase my tree density. All right, that one looks a little bit tall. So if you ever make a mistake, you can Control Z. So I'll take those trees back out and let me decrease the max height that we're making these types of trees. There we go, that's a little bit better. All right, so we got a little forest there and a forest there. Okay, feel free to put the trees where you want them in your map, and we're good to go there. All right, after you've placed your trees and you feel pretty good about that, let's move on to grass. So that's the next icon. Again, make sure you have your terrain selected. Hit the, looks like flowers there, but we're actually painting details, which is the little grass and flowers. Again, same process though. So it's very similar to the trees. We need to add them in. So edit details. And we have 2 different things. A detail mesh is normally for a bush or some type of static object like a tree. A grass texture is going to be a 2D texture that looks like blades of grass. So that's what we'll do here. Add grass texture. Again, it'll want a texture up here, so we click the button. And there's 2 that work very well. You have the grass frond 02 and the grass frond 01. I'm going to go with 02. Now, this is a giant disclaimer that I'm going to put in here, since some of you are using computers that are relatively slow with bad graphics cards. You want to be very minimal with the amount of grass that you put into your game. So for example, if I come in here and I start doing this, if I zoom out and painting it on, you don't see it. So you want to be careful about that. You want to be zoomed in really close to your train. See how much grass I have placed? You want to be careful about that. Hold down Shift and click to erase all the grass. All right, so be very sparingly with your grass. So I'm going to decrease these quite a bit so that when I do place some of this grass, it only puts it in sparingly. So that grass seems to be a little large. I guess it would be long on a deserted island, but I'm going to edit the details. So I'm going to click on my texture here and edit. And we have some properties here that we can change. We have width and height. So I'm going to decrease the max and min height so we can get some smaller versions of grass in here. Okay, so now when I click, that looks much better, at least to me. So now we can go through, and again, make sure you're zoomed in, and you want to be very sparingly with the grass. I would test it a little bit to see how good your computer's doing. Those of you with the laptops, you have a little bit more freedom because they're a little newer, so you can kind of go crazy. All right. So I'm just putting in some grass, checking to make sure it's not too much. Okay, and that's it for adding grass and trees and foliage. So the next thing is I'll redo the steps for creating or importing the character and making sure that we can then move a character around. Always the last step, save scene and save the project so we don't lose our changes if, God forbid, something happens to the computer.